So this is the time, I think, 3 minutes left. So I will start. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Unlocking Potential, Young Leaders and Strong Teams. This is our topic for today. The webinar is a part of the Erasmus Plus project called School Participatory Budgeting, a tool to foster school democracy. We are very happy to see you here today. My name is Agnieszka Maszkowska, and together with Agnieszka Morozowska from the SocLab Foundation, I will guide you through today's session. What is our plan for today's meeting? We will begin with a short introduction to the SocLab Foundation, which is one of the Erasmus Plus consortium member, the host of today's webinar. Then the main part of the webinar, we will present our practical guide for school PB coordinating teams. This guide is a part of our educational materials, which we have developed within the project. And during the webinar, as you could see in the invitation, we will explore how to build a strong and inclusive coordinating team composed of both young people and adults. We will identify the factors that enable young people to become the real driving force of school PB. And we will then examine how adults can support students and how they should define their role in the process. We will also examine the risk of youth washing and discuss how to ensure meaningful participation, youth participation, rather than merely symbolic involvement. This is for us very important. Finally, I hope that we will provide you also some really very practical tools and tips that can help teams organize and implement school PB effectively in schools. So we hope that this session and this time gives you useful ideas, inspiration, and concrete solutions that you can apply in your own school community. So this is the agenda, this is the plan, and we can begin. SocLab Foundation, this is our organization we work in, and we are based in Białystok in Poland. We have been working since 2011 to increase people's involvement in public life. And our goal is to help residents, citizens become active and informed citizens who can genuinely influence decisions affecting their communities. Our main fields of activities are public participation, social research, and social innovation. We combine sociological and methodological knowledge with practical experience in working with people and public institutions. We conduct social research, diagnosis, also evaluations, organize public consultations, facilitate civic dialogue, and design participatory and educational processes. Our work takes place both local, national and international levels. We cooperate with many stakeholders like local authorities, schools, universities, cultural institutions, NGOs, and grassroots initiatives. What is important in our work? Our work translates the values of participation into practical action. So we work with young people, with schools, with local governments and civil society organizations to develop civic skills, leadership, and meaningful involvement in public decision-making. This is in the center of our work and what we do. And coming to SPP, what is the main topic of today, school participatory budgeting is one of the central areas of our work. So far, we have supported the implementation of SPB in approximately 60 schools. You can see on the previous slide, Aga, you can show the previous slide. So here you can see our project focused mainly on youth. There are some logos, some projects we implemented, or we have been implementing. And on the next slide, you can see the pictures from our school PB processes. So as I mentioned, this is 60 schools we have been working so far, and our school PB projects have engaged more than 30,000 people, I would say. So maybe in this moment I should add also a few sentences about myself and the reason why I'm here speaking to you. I'm involved in SPB implementation and SPB development in our foundation from the beginning. It means that I know very well all these 60 cases or processes which I mentioned before, because I worked with these schools, these people, these teams as a trainer and a mentor. We have implemented school PB both in primary schools and in secondary schools. We also encouraged two local municipalities, governments, to incorporate it into their policies as a systemic approach. And among them are small town Wasilków with 3 primary schools, and Białystok, our city, a big city with 25 secondary schools. And in these two cases, the money for the project comes from the city budget. And now in both municipalities, we are in the middle of the 3rd edition of Municipal School PB. So when the SocLab Foundation implements School PB, it means that we are responsible for developing and supporting the whole process, from the initial training through the mentoring till the project implementations and evaluation. But apart from the implementation, we also cooperate with international partners to research School PB, test educational methods, and develop practical tools for students and coordinating team. And this project, which I mentioned at the beginning, is one of these international cooperation projects. So our aim is to make SPB a real experience for democracy and to help young people become confident, become responsible and active members of their communities. And thanks to this international cooperation, we can provide educational materials in 3 languages. Till now, we published materials in Polish, English, and Spanish. You can upload them from our website. One of them is a toolkit for developing participatory budgeting in schools and in the community. And the second one is a do-it-yourself manual. As the name says, it's a set of tools like scenarios and templates. And at the end of our presentation, we will share QR codes to these materials in English. So this is something what we did in the past, and now we are working on our next educational materials, which will be available soon. They will be published in Polish, English, and Spanish, as well as Italian and Bulgarian. So this is something what we are working now, and soon our materials will be available.
So stay tuned, guys, and thank you, Aga, for that. And now that you know a little bit more about the SocLab Foundation, I would like to introduce you the main tool behind today's webinar, our publication entitled SPB, a Practical Guide for Coordinating Team. So during many years of work as mentors in SPB processes, we observed that coordinating teams are the driving force behind SPB. Therefore, we decided to capture our experience and insights in form of a practical guide, which we believe you will have availability to see soon. We created this guide for schools that want to launch SPB, but also for schools that already have some experience and want to improve the quality of the whole process. It is addressed to everyone involved in coordinating SPB, so students, teachers, school staff, school leaders, and other adults who support young people in shared decision-making. So our guide begins with a simple assumption. SPB is not only about money, so we all know about that. Of course, the budget matters, but students need to know how much money is available, what it can be used for, and what financial limits apply. But we know that the real value of SPB goes much further. So SPB is both a democratic and learning process. It gives students an opportunity to identify needs, develop ideas, discuss priorities, prepare proposals, make collective decisions, and see the visible results. It is therefore both a financial tool and educational process. And our guide focuses on the people responsible for making that process possible. So the coordinating team, of course. And the team may also be called a working group, a steering committee, an organizing team, depends on the context and depends on the country. So the coordinating team plans the process, develops or discusses its rules, promotes it, supports students, organizes voting, monitors implementation, and evaluates the results. In other words, the team guides the SPB process from the beginning to a very end. And the guide offers the practical support in several important areas. It helps schools to reflect the real role of young people. It explains how adults can provide support without taking mostly control. It presents different models for building and selecting coordination team. It identifies common mistakes that can weaken trust and also offers practical tools, including a control checklist for coordinator, a Kanban board, which we're going to show you later on, sample task list, a simulation game for preparing young people to work as a whole, so as a team. And our guide does not present one rigid model that every school must copy. This is very important because we know the schools are different. They have different structures, resources, cultures, level of experiences, and even different relationship between workers or students and adults. So instead, our guide presents, let's say, some options, questions, risks, and possible solutions. It encourages every school to adapt the process to its own context, while protecting the essential values of SPB, and we have 9 of them, 9 values, which is democracy, participation, fairness, openness, cooperation, learning, creativity, growth, and impact. And as we move through today's webinar, I invite you to treat our guide in the same way. So not as a set of orders, but as a source of reflection and practical inspiration for all of us. And the central question we ask is not only how do we organize a SPB, but the more important one is how do we organize it in a way that gives young people genuine influence, responsibility, and ownership. And that brings us to the first main theme of today's webinar, which is, of course, young people as the driving force of SPB. So young people are not simply a group that benefits from SPB. They should be its co-creators and driving force. Students possess knowledge about the school that adults do not always have. They know which spaces feel welcoming, which spaces are uncomfy, what happens during breaks, what students need, what equipment is missing, and what could improve everyday school life. So a student may begin with a simple observation that there is nowhere quiet to sit during breaks. And that observation can become a conversation with other students. So the conversation can develop into a project idea. The idea can be described, budgeted, discussed, promoted, voted on, and finally implemented. And through this process, students learn that creating change requires more than having just a good idea. And it requires listening to others, explaining the need, working within a budget, negotiating priorities, communicating clearly, responding to feedback, and accepting responsibility for own decisions. And this is why SPB should not be reduced only to money or only to voting. Voting, of course, is important, but students can also help design the rules. We mean students in general, not only the coordinating team, create the communication campaign, support the project authors, organize discussions, prepare the vote, announce results, monitor implementation, and of course, evaluate the whole process at the end.
Let's now focus on a coordinating team because we find this idea of this and the structure of organizing School PB very important. So our guide describes the coordinating team as a collegial body, which is usually composed of students and adults, usually, but not always, but mainly, that body design the process, safeguards its quality, organizes activities, and guides SPB from the beginning to the end. As we mentioned before, the name may differ, so we can meet many other names for this body. So the name is really less important than the function. The coordinating team is not only the administrative group, it is something more. It protects the transparency, fairness, inclusiveness, and many other values we mentioned before. And I know it very well from my experience that as a mentor that a weak team, when the team is weak, may unintentionally create confusion. Students may not understand the rules, deadline can be missed, maybe responsibility may be unclear, or winning project may not be implemented. So a strong team creates the conditions in which young people can participate effectively and see the real impact of their decisions. Therefore, the coordinating team is one of the most important resources in the entire SPB process. Okay, and this is, I've just said about the role of coordinating team. Let's then ask the next questions. What is the role of young people in coordinating teams? And when defining the appropriate role of young people in SPB process, a useful tool is hard ladder of participation. And I think a model that is probably familiar to many of you. This model helps us distinguish between symbolic involvement and real influence. This is especially important in School PB, where the aim is not only to invite students to take part in voting, but to give them genuine agency, responsibility, and ownership. The same question is also crucial in any participatory processes. Are people only present, or do they truly have the power to shape decisions on many levels, not only in the voting phase? So the Robert Halt's ladder of participation illustrates different levels of young people's involvement, from actions with no real influence, this is on the bottom of the ladder, to shared decision-making and youth-led processes. And the first level from the bottom, starting from the bottom, is manipulation. And this happens when young people are used to support a decision that has already been made. They may not understand the real purpose of the activities, and they cannot influence it anyway. The second level is decoration. Young people may appear at an event in photographs, on the stage, or in promotional materials, but they have not participated in planning or decision-making. The third level is tokenism. And this is the situation when young people formally appear to have the voice, but their participation is mainly symbolic. They may be invited to speak, but they don't have complete information, cannot shape the process or the event, and do not influence the final decisions. A higher levels, above 3, third level, represent increasing levels of information, of agency, responsibility, and shared decision-making, as you can see on the slide. Young people may complete assigned tasks, but understand their purpose. They may be consulted and informed about the context. Adults may begin the process but share decisions with young people. At the highest level, young people initiate and even lead activities, while adults can support them through advice, resources, safeguarding, and partnership. What is the purpose of the ladder? Maybe it's not about that we suggest that every activity must always reach the highest level. Probably not. The purpose is to help us honestly identify how much influence young people have. This is the way to check to what extent our process is youth-led. This is something very important when we are talking about School PB, that this is youth-led process, and definitely is not youth-led when adults make every meaningful decision in this process.
So let us proceed and pause and reflect on our own practice, guys. So young people may be physically present without having a meaningful influence somewhere. They may attend a meeting without receiving the information needed to participate and participate actively. They may be invited only after the main decisions have been already made. Sometimes it happens, unfortunately. They may contribute ideas but never hear what happened to them, so to those ideas. And they may vote but never have the role in developing the rules, discussing some priorities, or monitoring implementation. And I encourage you to think about the students who are usually invited to participate in any initiatives in your school or your environment in general. And are they often the same people? Are they already confident, visible, academically successful, or active in the Students' Council or any other group? And who is missing? So you can share your experiences and write in a chat, what do you think, who participate the most in your experience, of course, in any initiatives that you lately participated in. And I will give you a time for that, and I will continue. Perhaps the quieter students are missing, that we observe that quiet often. Perhaps students with disabilities or language barriers face some obstacles, and this is our job to help them. Perhaps participation formats favor students who are comfortable speaking in public. And we need to remember that engagement is not for one personality type. So you can share your experiences in a chat group and tell us what did you observe. And a quiet student, we need to remember, may be an excellent listener. A student who does not enjoy public speaking may be a strong organizer, designer, researcher, or a great problem solver. And meaningful participation requires different ways of contributing, so different ways for everyone. We can clearly see this in the project and processes we implement with AGA and the whole SocLab Foundation. We know examples of people with social difficulties who work in coordinating teams and with the right support from adults performed very well, and they improved their social skills and reduced their social challenges. And it is always worth thinking beyond standard approaches, so out of the box, and giving everyone a chance to contribute in their own way, so as they wish to participate and contribute in something. And because we said something already about active presence, we would go to the youth washing, what it really is. So when we talk about the meaningful participation, it is also important to recognize practices that weaken or distort young people's role in decision making. Adults may sometimes involve youth with good intentions, but in a ways that are superficial, symbolic, or controlled from above. And one of these risks is exactly youth washing. So youth washing occurs when people's voices, needs, image, language, or energy are used in a superficial or symbolic way without giving them genuine influence. So a school may declare that students are at the center of decision-making process while inviting them only after the important decision have been taken. A student may appear in photographs, promotional videos, or social media posts, but their ideas may have no effect on the final outcome. So youth washing may also occur when students submit proposals and vote, but the winning project is never implemented. So these practices, we need to remember, are not harmless. Young people quickly recognize the participation that is not, true and not genuine. And if they invest time and energy but see no result, they may become more skeptical than they were before. So instead of learning that democracy works, they would learn that participation is mainly a performance. So that's why we need to avoid a youth washing thing. And instead of building trust, the process damages it. So let's talk, because this is a very dangerous practice, and let's talk about 5 ways to avoid that. So our guide, as Aga introduced our tool before, our guide presents 5 principles for avoiding the youth washing. And the first one is involve young people from the very beginning. So do not invite students only when it's time to vote or promote the final result. Invite them to discuss the rules, timelines, project criteria, communication methods, and the evaluation, of course. The second one is focus on long-term relationship. A one-off activity may look somehow successful, but it does not automatically build trust. So SPB should become a recurring process, should document the work, evaluate with students, and apply recommendation in the future decisions. And the third one is align values with everyday practice. So if a school publicly promotes democracy, students should have genuine opportunities to influence any decision. If civic engagement is considered important, the school should create time and space for it. Fourth one is recognize diversity. We said a little bit about that before. So young people are not one homogeneous group. Schools should offer different participation channels, so online and in person, individual and group-based, and also public and anonymous. And this process should be accessible to students of different ages, abilities, backgrounds, and levels of confidence. And the fifth one, the last one, is stay authentic. So adults do not need to imitate young people or force slang and memes into communication during any process. And it is often more effective to allow students to create communication for their peers, so they do it by themselves, through videos, podcasts, posters, presentations, or social media in general. And authenticity comes from a real influence, we need to know, not from the whole visual style.
Let's focus now on the another thing, because in the first part of the webinar we talked a lot about the youth and their role in the process of SPB in coordinating team, and now it's time to focus on adults. Are they not as important? Of course they are. They're really, I believe they are essential to SPB. Why? A few reasons behind it. They have very often they have important knowledge about budget, about regulations, purchasing, schedules, and of course, school procedures. However, adult involvement, we should be careful because can either empower students or limit their agency. And our analysis show that the difference often depends on the role of adults choose to play. So we described it as a manager role or mentor role. So how can we describe a manager and how does the mentor behave? A manager directs and controls, whereas a mentor supports and empowers. A manager may make key decisions to prevent mistakes, whereas a mentor allows students to make decisions and helps them learn from the consequences. A manager listens and asks questions. A manager gives instructions and ready-made solutions, whereas a mentor listens and asks questions that deepen thinking. Next, a manager has a temptation to maybe solve problems for students because this is faster, easier, and the mentor helps students to understand the problem and provides tools that they can use to do it by themselves. This is not so easy because I really know that sometimes adults often take control with good intentions. A teacher may prepare something for students because the deadline is approaching, or coordinator may rewrite the student's proposal, correct it fast because it's easier. A principal may even reject the idea immediately because it appears unrealistic at first glance. These actions may save time, but on the other hand, they remove opportunities for learning and what is also important for ownership. Mentoring does not mean, of course, doing nothing. It's not like leaving students by themselves. A mentor remains present, available, and attentive. The difference is that support does not become control. Mentoring is a kind of competence that, of course, we can develop as youth workers. I believe that. It begins with listening. So before judging an idea, adults should first understand what students want to achieve. Maybe let's show it on the example. Imagine that students propose something that cannot be implemented within the school PBE in its original form because of costs, to higher costs, or safety requirements. And what would be the response of a manager coordinator? He or she would probably say, no, it's not possible, it's too expensive, choose something else, do something else. A mentoring response would be different, could be different. The adult might say, this version cannot be implemented because of these requirements. Let's identify maybe what is the main need behind this idea and consider another way of responding to it. Perhaps the students want to place to relax, meet friends, work quietly, or spend time outdoors. Those ideas are we meet very often in our projects of our students. Once the underlying need is clear, the proposal can be really adapted. The mentor does not hide real limitation, of course, because this is important. Legal, financial, or safety issues must be communicated honestly. However, the limitation becomes part of learning process rather than the end of the conversation, because maybe the idea could be different. So this is important to remember about this kind of attitude towards students. And adults, of course, can also support healthy group dynamics. They can notice, for example, when the group of young people is dominated, for example, by one person in the discussion. They can encourage quieter students. And a good mentor creates or helps to create a space when students can also disagree respectfully, ask questions, change their minds. feel safe and learn from mistakes. So continuing speaking about the adults, selecting the right person who is responsible for school PB is very important. Formal position is not enough, I think. What is probably the most important, this is good when adult is not forced to become a school PB coordinator. When this is, it is good when this is his or her goodwill to be responsible for school PB in the school. What else? The best facilitator is not necessarily the person with the highest authority or with the most extensive experience in project management. Adult allies should be genuinely willing to share power, to over control the process. They should be patient, empathetic, trustworthy, and really open to students' idea, including ideas that challenge adult assumption. They should be also, of course, approachable and capable of creating psychological safety. They should understand group dynamics and notice whose voices are dominating, as I mentioned before, and whose voices are absent. This is of course very important that they have credibility within the school system, at least approval of the principal. And a good facilitator can also help students to communicate with school leaders, to understand procedures, access resources, and overcome institutional barriers which can occur within the process. So our guide describing this role uses the metaphor of a guide along the way. Adults, we describe adults as not a pilots steering the entire process, and not as spectators who leave students alone with their problems and they are not prepared to solve, They help students understand the process, the terrain, recognize risks, find resources, and continue towards a goal that young people have helped define.
Okay, so let's jump and explore now the topic of the coordinating team in more detail. So what can its composition look like? We have 3 models in our guide. So it's worth to underpin and highlight that there is no single perfect model for SPB coordinating team. And the first option we have in the guide is a team composed mainly of students and supported by 1 or 2 adults. And this is often a good starting model. Students retain strong ownership, while adults provide support with administration, school procedures, logistics, and communication with decision makers. But we had some, good things, but the main risk is that adults may gradually take control, or students may begin to expect adults to complete all the difficult tasks. So we have not only plus, but also a minus on that. And the second option is a balanced and mixed team. It may include students, teachers, school leadership, parents, local authority representatives, or community partners even. However, formal balance does not always mean real balance. On the presentation, you can see both benefits and risk, as I said, of each the composition. And adults on this one may speak more confidently, use some technical language, or they can be treated as more authoritative than, young people. So clear decision-making rules and good facilitation are therefore essential in that one. And the third option is a student-only team, which is very interesting. This model offers very strong student agency, independence, and authentic peer-to-peer communication. However, students may require external support with things such as budgeting, purchasing, safety requirements, or school administration in general. And students-only team should therefore have access to adult support without transferring the whole control to adults.
Mhm. And the next issue when we creating coordinating team is how to select individuals, how to select students who should be in the coordinating team. And our guide in this point presents 5 possible methods for selecting students. And of course, all of them have their pros and cons. But let's go through all of them. The first is to involve student council members. So we can base our team on the council members, so active students who act in this council. They are usually experienced, motivated. So this is a plus, this is a pro of this approach, but there is a risk that SBB becomes another activity which is controlled by the same small group of people. The second option, the second idea is selection by adults. So this is easy and quick. We know students, we can invite some of them. But what is the cons? It may be less transparent and less representative, of course. The third method of select is to elect class representatives. This provides broad democratic representation. This is a pro, although not every selected student will necessarily feel motivated, because the question is, what is his will to be in this kind of body? And the fourth option is an open call for volunteers. This may attract students who are genuinely interested, but the team may still be dominated by the most active or confident students. And the fifth option is a rotating class. So let's imagine that each year different class is responsible for the coordination of school PB. This creates, of course, opportunities for many students, but the question is what will be the next year. The next students should learn how to organize, how to do the process. So the continuity may be weak. So personally, I worked with teams selected in most of these methods I presented. Which one, how do you think, is the most popular? I don't know, you can share your opinions in the chat. How do you think, how usually in a school PB teams are selected, students to the teams are selected? What my practice says, selection by adults. This is something what I meet the most in most cases. So when you select students, the central, of course, principle is diversity of voices. Of course, even if you select students, like by pointing or inviting people, you can have in mind that this is important to have different students, not only the best one, like in terms of good marks. So it is really good that team consists of different people from different classes, age groups, level of experience, and forms of school involvement. And yes, this is especially important to invite students who have not previously been socially active, because as we mentioned before, this is a way of their learning and building competences. Participation in this coordinating team may become really empowering experience, and I really know it from my experience. I know many students who would like tell you that it happens to them, that it was really empowering experience, and this experience reveal leadership skills, abilities, even the students who were previously invisible. So from my practice, I can say that it is really important to include students from different age groups and not be afraid including younger students, even in primary schools. Both in the SPB coordination teams, and in the whole SPB process. This helps preserve continuity. When older students graduate and leave the school, younger students can carry forward the knowledge and the experience and practical skills needed to coordinate. And thanks to that, we can organize easily next editions of School PB. So the next issue, this is the team size. We were wondering while preparing our guide, how many people should be in the coordinating team? Team size affects the way people communicate and share responsibility, of course. It may vary, and I'm sure it depends on the context. However, a small team of 6 to 10 members can make decisions quickly, communicate easily, and develop strong relations, which is important. It may be, I think, a good option for beginners when you organize your first edition of SPB. And this is the number which I personally meet in the most cases when I work in School PB. And this is also my approach to work with, like, about 7 people. On the other hand, of course, we can say that this is a small number. It's not a big part of school community. And this is also a small number, and people may carry too much work. So we can also think that it's sometimes good to have a larger team, more than 10. And when we have more than 10 people, it offers more perspectives. It makes it easier, of course, to distribute the tasks. And it may be also more representative. However, of course, larger group requires stronger facilitation and clearer communication. Otherwise, responsibility may become diffused because everyone can assumes that somebody else will do something or complete the task. Whatever the size is, the issue is that each member should know what they are responsible for, what decision they can make, who they are working with, and when the task must be completed. Students are more likely to remain engaged when they receive real responsibility. They should not be limited to putting up, I don't know, posters or carrying equipment. This task should be more serious, I believe. They can help shape the rules, lead meetings, design communication, organize consultation, or monitor implementation. And in this point, important questions occurs. What motivates the coordinating team members? Because motivation is important. Of course, we can mention a lot of aspects here. We can point out really many factors of what build the motivation of students. But I want in this point mention one thing. This thing is recognition. Schools can celebrate milestones, provide certificates, or publicly acknowledge contributions. And please, when you do initiatives with youth, it's really important not to forget about it.
So let's proceed to common implementation mistakes. So what can undermine SPB? We need to have in mind constantly that even a well-intentioned SPB process can fail if important risks are ignored, and those risks we have on the presentation now. So the first one is a major mistake of tokenism or simulation. Aga told about those two before. A process without a guaranteed budget, with predetermined results, or without implementation does not provide genuine participation. We need to have that in mind. And the second problem is exclusion. If only the most active, confident, or successful students participate, the process may reign for existing inequalities in a school context or any institution context. And third problem is poor transparency. So students need a clear information from the very beginning about the budget, timeline, project criteria, voting rules, and reasons why a proposal may need to be changed. And we proceed with another one, which is excessive bureaucracy, somehow connected with, unclear rules. So long forms, adult financial language, and unrealistic deadlines that can discourage students. And adults must find a balance between, abandonment and domination. So young people should not be left with that completely alone, because the process requires support and scaffolding. Also, unrealistic proposals should become opportunities for learning. Instead of rejecting them without explanation, adults should help students understand the limitations and adapt their ideas. And finally, winning projects must be implemented in a timely way. So we have an 8, failure to implement results. And without implementation, students receive a clear message that their decisions do not matter. And we need to remember also every single time about evaluation, about group reflection on what happened previously, and of course celebration, which is the recognition Aga told us about before. And let's go to the SPB coordinator's readiness checklist. So are we ready to launch authentic process? So the readiness checklist helps schools identify problems before the whole process begins. So the first phase concerns foundation and transparency. So is the budget confirmed and protected? Are the timeline, spending limits, and selection criteria are clearly explained? Have we planned as a coordination team how to reach students outside of Students' Council? And is the process accessible to students with disabilities or language barriers? So before we start with SPB, we need to sit and have reflection all together about those things. And the second phase concerns the process and the support provided to students. So do we have a plan for helping students without dictating them ideas? Can students receive constructive feedback and adapt difficult proposals? Are the facilitators prepared to manage unequal participation? And is the proposal form simple enough to complete without discouragement? The third phase, which is also very important, concerns implementation and reflection. So can winning project be completed while its authors are still at school? Because we know some people take part in SPB that are, in the higher classes and leaving school soon. So has the school publicly committed to respecting the results and respecting the whole rules of SPB process? Have we planned a session for reflection, evaluation, recognition, and celebration? And this checklist that we prepared with Aga can be used before each edition of SPB, and of course could be revised through the whole process. And now I want to introduce you to our game SPB Mission Team in Action. And this is also in our guide, which you will see soon. This is a team-based simulation game designed especially for newly formed SPB coordinating teams, so people who are just starting with that adventure. And during the game, participants work together through all 6 stages of SPB. So this is our method of learning by doing. So they take the role of guardians of one of the 9 SPB values, which I presented to you before already. So democracy, participation, fairness, openness, etc. And as they move through each stage, they learn with what the coordinating team does in practice in SPB. So they explore useful tools and good practices and experience the most important tasks and decisions involved in running SPB process. And we would like to stress that training is not an extra part of SPB. It is one of the foundation of a successful process, especially when SPB is being implemented for the first time. So training, and again, training. Our experience show that when students and adults are properly prepared from very beginning, the SPB becomes more inclusive, participatory and empowering. So people feel more confident, they work better together, they are more willing to take responsibility for the whole process because they somehow know the process already. And this is why we strongly encourage schools to use training materials included in our materials and our guide, including the SPB mission team in action, because that can make a real difference and help build a strong, independent, confident, well-prepared SPB team from the beginning of a journey.
Okay, Agnieszka just started to present you not only the ideas behind the school PB we share, we believe, but also practical tools. So the game is one of them, and we also would like to continue. I would like to continue and show another practical, actually management tool, I would say, because of course SPB is a democratic practice, but it's also a complex and quite long, really long organizational project. So even experienced teams can get stuck when responsibilities are unclear, where deadlines are vague, or everyone assumes that someone else is taking care of the next step. So this is a really complex project to organize. That's why in our guide we propose using two very practical tools. One of them is a checklist, a task checklist, and a Kanban board, as you can see on the presentation. Kanban board coming from agile methodology of from management. This comes from, of course, the method of management. And the checklist starting. What is the checklist? The checklist gives the coordinating team concrete directions, what to do. It shows what the team can do, should do, or can do at different moments of the process. We divided the task list to the stages, so preparing the rules at the beginning, designing forms, planning communication, supporting project authors, then verifying feasibility, preparing voting, monitoring implementation, and evaluating. So these tasks are really detailed and can show the team what to do in each of the steps. And what is the Kanban board? The Kanban board helps turn this checklist into action. Each task becomes a card, but a useful card should not only be like promotion or voting. It should be more detailed, should answer the questions: what exactly needs to be done, who is responsible for it, what is the deadline for doing these tasks. For example, instead of writing like proposal form, the team can create a task card saying, test the proposal form with 5 students and check how can we improve by wording something in this form by Friday. This makes the tasks clear, visible, and possible to monitor. You probably know the method because this is, I believe that this is used in NGOs. We often use this list of to do, in progress, done. So this is the Kanban board. And of course, the card starts in to do. When someone begins working on it, it moves to in progress. And when the task is completed and accepted by the team, it is moved to done. This is simple structure, but it could prevent chaos when students have a lot of tasks to do and they don't know exactly when it should be done. So it also can show that when the process is blocked. If too many tasks stays in progress column, the team can immediately see that that it needs support, better division of work, or maybe, I don't know, they should have fewer tasks at one time. We also recommend using selected elements of agile project management, not as complicated and methodology, but as a kind of rhythm of work, because in agile we work, for example, in sprints. So we can, this is a term we use. So this is a periods, short 1 or 2 week periods. During each sprint, it chooses a limited number of tasks from the checklist we can choose and focus on completing them. And the second term we use in agile is check-ins. This is also useful. So the check-ins, this is a, let's say, meeting when we can have 5 or 10 minutes and focus on some questions: what we have completed, what we are doing next, what obstacles we met, and what maybe support do we need. So this is really useful, I think, practice. And the principle here is not the speed, but learning. The team should not wait until the end of the process and discover, we didn't do something. It can test things early. So this is, I observe that this is important, because when we plan everything at the beginning and the process lasts, let's say, 4 months, this is something can be missed. And this approach, this methodology helps preventing missing things and completing small tasks at some period of time. Does it work in practice, Aga? Because I know you worked and you have experience with
I was
Agile.
waiting for my turn to share our experiences with you. So we have seen that the Kanban board works very well in our practice, because we introduced that in our own team building simulation game, which I told you about, but in one of the secondary schools in our region, so Podlaskie region. We have also recently conducted evaluation workshops with representative of 24 secondary schools from Białystok city, so our city. And we know that many of them continue to use the tools we recommended and trained them to apply. And this shows that, practical, easy to use management tools can become a lasting part of SPB process, because when I met with young people, they showed me that they used Kanban board and they used our checklist, and they were like, this is, so helpful during the whole process. And it is also worth noting that the choice of tools should always reflect the needs of coordinating team and the organizational context of the whole school. So task management solutions such as Kanban board are also available in digital form. I myself prepare, the form on the school walls, on the boards, but some people use the digital form. So online tools such as Trello or Microsoft Planner can work very, very well as well. Making tasks easily accessible to everyone, on the phones, and increasing transparency, ensuring the whole team has a shared overview of progress and responsibilities, and everyone is up to date with what's going on currently. And as I shared my experience, let's go to checklist for coordinating team, which me and Aga also prepared for you in a guide. So on this slide, you can see only a simplified version of our checklist, of course. So selected general task for each stage of SPB process, but in our guide, of course, checklist is more detailed and richer. And this is intentional, guys. We don't want to create one rigid model that every school has to follow in exactly the same way. Schools differ, they have different levels of experience, different sizes, different internal procedures, different calendars, resources, teams, etc. So the checklist should be treated as a practical task bank. So it helps coordinating team ask, what do we actually need to do in our school? Which tasks are essential in our context? Which tasks can be simplified? Which one requires support from adults, school leaderships, administration, external partners, etc. So each point from the checklist can be transformed into a concrete task card, but the team should make it more specific. So a good task card should include what exactly needs to be done, who is responsible, when it should be completed, and what done means. So this makes the process more manageable. It also prevents a common problem in SPB we are observing with AGA. So everyone knows the stages, but no one is fully sure what has to happen next. So who should do it, what's going on, and whether the task is actually finished. So the value of the checklist is not only that it tells the team what to do, but it helps the team think strategically about the whole process. It supports, planning, division, transparency, continuity between editions, and after each stage, the team can return to checklist and ask. As I said, we have a read-through one in our guide, so you can see only few examples, but they can ask which task did we really complete in each stage, which task were missing, did we get stuck anywhere, and what should we add, remove, or change in the next year and in the next edition. So in this way, the checklist becomes more than organizational tool. It becomes a learning tool for the whole coordination team. And it helps each school build SPB process that is realistic, for sure, inclusive, and adapted to its own community. So instead of copying a model that may not fit, they use a checklist and see what they really can do and improve in their SPB process.
Okay, and we are nearing the end of our presentation. Here on the slide, you can see our main ideas together. So what is important to us, what we think that makes the young people stronger, and what is the most important when we try to implement School PB as a really youth-led process. But please, Aga, please the next slide, because I want to, at the end, I would like to end with a practical reflection. Maybe think about your school organization, maybe the process you are currently led or implement. Maybe this presentation, I hope that it will be like this, that this presentation showed you some new areas to think about. Maybe there is a kind of decision that students could genuinely make. In your cases, maybe there is one responsibility that you as an adult could transfer to young people in your SPB process to give them more power. Maybe you can observe or identify a barrier to participation that could be removed. And at last question, which tool we presented do you find useful? And maybe there is one concrete change that you can make after this webinar, because I believe that we don't need to change everything. Sometimes it's important to do small changes to give more power to students, more responsibility. And thanks to that, we build the potential of young people and make them feel empowered and ready to achieve new new other goals in their adult life.